Welcome to Behind the Beer, where we go behind the scenes to discover the people and roles of producing the product we all love, craft beer. Now, here is your host, Ernest Stevenson.
Hello, everyone. We're back again with another episode of Behind the Beer. Today, we're in Durham, North Carolina, at Atomic Clock Brewing Company with owners Brian and Colleen Quinn. Welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, of course.
So, first of all, because I know people will ask, what is your relationship?
Yeah, we get that a lot. We are brothers and sisters, not husband and wife. We constantly have to correct people on that. But yeah, it's been interesting to tell the story of being brothers and sisters opening a business together.
So how does that work? Because I know most siblings
can't
hardly exist together, much less do a business.
We haven't killed each other yet, and I feel like if we've been arguing about beer for the past, basically since we were of legal drinking age, if not even a little bit before then. So we've had a lot of these arguments over the Thanksgiving dinner tables already. So I think if we're still going strong, we'll probably find a good way to make it work. It does help that we do have a separate brewing location from the tap room. So there's I'm just kind of out sequestered in my little brewery dungeon while she gets to be in the nice, warm, inviting tap room over here.
I was going to ask how y'all divided up the
and you could already
responsibilities.
hear the resentment that he has, right? So I think that paints the picture of what the sibling co-ownership looks like. But
absolutely.
But yes, there are plenty of days that I'm happy that he has his own separate brewery to go hide away.
You insisted on a separate brew house, right?
Well, initially we were looking for a co-located space, but it is it's pretty challenging, especially in downtown Durham, to find something. We wanted something with good foot traffic in a good area, but finding a 10,000 square foot building that's kind of ideal for brewing and shipping and receiving, while also having the kind of checking all the boxes we wanted in a tap room and kitchen was just pretty much impossible to find. So we ended up kind of splitting it up and kind of got the best of both worlds.
Awesome.
And better for business from a cost perspective going that route.
Oh, yeah. So tell us about this building that the tap room is in.
Sure. Yeah. So the building, it's a historic building, which, comes with its set of challenges during the build out process, but also just we got all this beautiful exposed brick, and just the building itself has a lot of history here within Durham. It was built in 1926. You see out front that old fire drill tower. So the fire department was stationed here for a while. I believe the sanitation department was here for a while. This was originally kind of the city garage that serviced the first combustion engine fleet of vehicles for the city of Durham. So. Okay. Most recently, before we took over, it was office space, some sort of information tech company. But I remember living in Durham years ago, and I'd walk by this building, and I was like, oh man, this very underutilized in its previous use case. So we're really really happy to bring some new life into it, and we've got there's a restaurant, Plum Cellar Kitchen, right next door to us, a running shop, and they're looking to add some more tenants to the other side of the building. So we're and we've got some parking too, which is kind of anomalous in Durham. So it really checked a lot of the boxes that we were looking for in a tap room location, and we love being in an older building with some nice character and a sense of history. We had toyed with, opening the tap room kind of in the bottom of one of the many new apartment complexes that's going up.
As we pulled up, I was like, oh, this looks like Charlotte.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of everywhere right now. It's, and it's definitely a sign that Durham's growing and people are, excited to be moving to Durham and living in Durham. And, we definitely hope to capture some of that market as some of these apartments fill up, but, also just really happy that we were able to get into an older building with some just, beautiful architecture.
Character.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
And, it comes with a roof leak here and there and some fun like that, but, you power through it.
Yeah. So, Brian, I know a little bit about your beer background. How about you, Colleen? What is your background in craft beer?
Yeah, I mean, Brian likes to say that I followed him into craft beer. I like to say I stumbled into craft beer. So I was actually working at CarMax right out of college. I had been at that company for a little over 5 years. Wasn't all that passionate about used cars, as one can imagine. Was drinking a lot of craft beer, but hadn't been in the business at all for it, but started to just look for different jobs. A friend of mine actually found a head of strategy job at a company that owned 8 breweries around the United States. So I threw my hat in the ring. Didn't think I was going to get that job. Got offered the job, and kind of the rest is history.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I've been on basically all aspects of the beer business except for making and producing beer. So sales, marketing, strategy, finance, some taproom operations. So it's been pretty good to have kind of the complementary skill sets with Brian doing all of the brewing and production, and also putting him to work doing sales and all that now. So.
Well, it sounds like you have the
You got to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. It sounds like you are the perfect combination to pull off a brewery. So
yeah, awesome. Definitely really, I think, complementary skill sets. And, it's tough with a startup because, we're all moving 1 million miles an hour like chickens with our heads cut off, and we're all wearing a lot of hats. We're all trying to just, do everything to get by. But I think kind of the breadth of both of our experience really has kind of helped us get things done and get the doors open, and we can continue to build the team in the years to come.
Awesome.
Yeah, a lot of dividing and conquering going on.
Cool. Tell us what we're drinking here.
So you've got that is a pint of the McFly Pilsner. We actually brewed that down at Protagonist in Charlotte. It was Jeremy Clay's last day with Protagonist when we brewed that one. So that was great. I went to brewing school years ago with Jeremy, and he's onto new things now with some new things in the works. But it was great to get into Protagonist with him for his last brew day, and just brew a nice kind of traditional German style Pilsner. Not hardcore traditional. We did actually use some Willamette hops in that, along with Hallertau Tradition. But nice crisp Pilsner, a little bit of nice kind of noble hop character with some lemony notes, herbal notes, real good crusher. We're actually just getting I just brewed our first lager here yesterday. So we're excited to get our Pilsner and more lagers coming out in the coming weeks as we continue to grow the tap list. I'm actually sipping on a beer that we're releasing today called Pendulum. It is a hoppy amber ale brewed with kind of old school vibes. It was lightly dry hopped with Simcoe and Centennial. Actually brewed it with some of Epiphany's Seashore Black rye. It's an heirloom rye variety grown in the Southeast, I think, kind of Charleston area, the Carolinas, and it's definitely a softer rye than some of the a bruisey rye that's more common out there, but lends a really nice kind of palate fullness and kind of enhances some of the hop bitterness to it. So we're brewing pretty exclusively with Epiphany Craft Malt, which they're here based out of Durham. I've got a great relationship with the crew over there. Sebastian Wilfram, we've known each other for years. It's awesome being able to just kind of back the box truck up and load up and take it back to the brewery and get to brewing with it. So that's been nice. And then
I'm drinking Perpetual Motion. It's a pale ale. It was Brian's first brew on our new system, and I think he nailed it right out the gate. So it's been my go-to. Really probably gives more of the West Coast characteristics than our other IPAs that we have on. But really refreshing, really balanced. The hops in this were
that is predominantly a Chinook beer with a little bit of Mosaic and Idaho 7.
Nice.
Yeah, so you get a little bit of old school meets new school on that hop profile, which I think is in a lot of ways a common thread with some of the ways that Brian approaches brewing. Makes for some fun beverages.
Yeah, I like the I like the clarity on that.
Yeah.
And this.
Cheers.
And it's all clear. Cheers.
Yeah.
And this, I get more of a perceived bitterness than you normally get on a Pilsner. So
Yeah, it's on the hoppier side. We Jeremy and I aren't afraid of hops. So that was it's definitely fun to. I like a nice crisp bitter Pilsner, and the German style Pils with their drier finish tends to kind of highlight that hop bitterness for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so far, Perpetual Motion and McFly have been our top two sellers. Atomicron, one of our hazy IPAs, a close third right behind this. And then we'll see how Pendulum swings as we release it today. But I've been teasing to some folks coming in the tap room that we're releasing it, and folks seem excited.
Yeah. All right. So Atomic Clock, how did that name come to be?
A lot of debates and arguing and brainstorming, and it took us a long time. But I think, Brian, you were the first one to throw out that name.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely not the first name that we had landed on, and we kind of went pretty deep under a different name before deciding to pivot. And I'm sure Colleen was losing her mind when I was like, "Hey, I think maybe we should just change things up here." And I didn't have a name at the time when I said that. So, we kind of dove back into like the brainstorming mode, and, I don't even know what rabbit hole took me to Atomic Clock. But as soon as I kind of started thinking about that, like I was like, ooh, I really like this. Let me sleep on it. And then like the next day I was like, I still like this. I'm like, I'm going to sleep on it for a week and then I'm going to tell Colleen. And then, I don't know what your initial reactions were to it, but terms of,
I was worried that people were. I mean, I think we came up with this name right as the war in Ukraine was getting kicked off. So I was like, I don't really want our name associated with nuclear war.
Yeah.
So we had to marinate on that and ask some folks if they thought that it gave off too many war-inducing vibes.
We're certainly going for more, time and clock inspired,
and the science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't even think about Atomic.
What's that?
I didn't even think about Atomic because
Thank you.
Well, my background was electronics.
Yeah.
I just
Atomic
love,
Clock was something we used
with Atomic Clocks being kind of the the most precise timekeeping device we have. That kind of precision really encapsulates a lot of our brewing mindset, not just our brewing mindset, but just our kind of general business mindset. I just also love that there's kind of this collaborative twist to it, where international time is established by like 400 plus atomic clocks across the globe, kind of the meaning of that. So it's got this cool, like collaborative, global, bent to it, which is fun. And yeah, I mean, I geek out on the, I don't know if Colleen was prepared to go down as geeky, nerdy of a path as this ultimately, took us down. But
I'm never going to fight you on being geekier than I am. So you can win that battle. Perpetual Motion was actually one of the contenders for the name. For
we looked at that as well.
And then we were like, well, actually that could fit as a beer name if we went the Atomic Clock route. So it was, a lot of back and forth on that. But we also just thought we could do some really cool imagery. I think being in a historical space, we really liked the ability to kind of have a like retro meets modern kind of vibe to it. And we thought the innovation of an atomic clock, but also clocks have been around in different forms and fashion for so long that it allowed us to do that, do some cool things with that. And we've got a really fun clock room in the tap room where we've already like thrifted and gotten some donated clocks. And then we're doing a special where if anyone brings in one of their old clocks that they just have lying around their house, they get a $5 gift card. So it'll let us keep kind of rounding out the clock wall and kind of just a fun way to connect with the community.
Plus thousands of beer named.
So many options. So it gives us a lot of a good sandbox to play around.
For sure. Awesome. So, Colleen, what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh, I don't know that I've had a typical day yet. Right now, I'm kind of here any minute that the tap room's open until my staff gets up to speed. But I'm normally in several hours before they doing all of my non-tap room related duties, the accounting side of things, social media, Just getting different systems set up, getting vendors set up, all of that type of things that is more of the behind the scenes, less fun sides of the craft beer business. And
that's what this podcast is all about.
Exactly. And then the crew gets in, we get rocking and rolling, pouring beers, all of that. Once they're in a good spot, I can normally chip away at a few other things on my to-do list until we get into a mad rush, and then I'm jumping right back behind the bar until we close up at either 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and then just helping people close and then doing it all over again.
Awesome. So how many days a week are you open?
Right now we're open 6 days a week.
6 days.
We're closed Mondays for now. Eventually we do want to expand to 7 days a week. And expand some of our hours on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, but need to get our kitchen fully staffed so that...
Okay, so you do have a kitchen.
Yeah, we have
Awesome.
a full kitchen. Chef David is cranking out some amazing food, but we can't have him pulling double shifts, 7 days a week right now.
Right.
So we're going to kind of gradually ramp up into that as he rounds out his team and gets a good kind of second in command back there so that he can feel like the kitchen's in a good spot when he steps away and goes home and spends a little bit of time with his family, sleeping, all of those nice luxuries in life.
Yeah, sleep is usually a pretty good thing.
Yeah, it is. Very, underrated.
That's funny. I can't remember what episode it was now, but, one of my questions is always about underrated tool, and someone said sleep.
Yeah. Well, we were joking around for a while there. I said the most important ingredient in making beer is electrical gear, because that was what held us up on getting our the production site finalized. We were waiting on one piece of electrical gear for one control panel. Everything else was basically done, but that held us up probably close to a month delay?
Probably
2 months?
More than a month, a couple months, yeah.
Wow.
On that, just literally waiting for one tiny little piece of electrical
Usually people
gear.
are all waiting on permits.
Well, we did our fair share of that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. We actually, the building permit side of things took a little bit of time, but ABC permits and all of that, we
was quick.
We got that pretty quick.
That's
we had
good.
that pretty dialed in. So
Nice. So, Brian, what does a typical day look for you now?
Similarly, kind of all over the place, but I have really, really loved, with Atomic Clock diving back, full-time plus onto the brewing side of operations. Getting the boots on and pulling some valves and making some beer is certainly the bulk of my my hours right now. And a lot of my recent previous spots, I'd had a little bit of help on the brewery side. Day one, I don't have that right now. It's just me, and I'm also in my spare time, I get to do some sales and delivery as well. Just dropped off on the way over here. Dropped off our first kegs into distribution into market. So that was nice. And then certainly with the the separate locations, hauling a lot of beer from there over to here. Got a great deal on a box truck from the fine folks down there in Charlotte at Noda Brewing. So that's been a lifesaver, not just for running beer for distro and to the tap room, but also like I mentioned, we're sourcing malt from Epiphany Craft Malt. So being able to drive over there and snag grain, that's been great. But yeah, I mean, it's just right now, we're kind of, all of us wearing many hats, kind of, I'm brewing, selling, chief janitor, all that stuff. It's been good. I definitely, going to take a minute before I bring on any additional help in the brew house, simply because I want to be close to the beer. I want to really get some recipes dialed in, get our processes dialed in before bringing on some more help.
Well, you're kind of rusty now too, right?
I know. Yeah, I've been out of the game for a little minute after doing that brief stint with the Country Malt Group in sales. It was a bit of a rude awakening for a minute diving back in, but. Yeah, it's I feel like I'm probably brewing harder now than I have at any point in my career, but maybe I'm just older and weaker. So,
but again, I'm drinking the first brew that you did on the system, so I don't think you're too rusty because it's tasting really good.
The brew house has been great. It's a 20-barrel, 3-vessel Deutsche brew house. I've got a mix of 5-barrel tanks for some split batch stuff, 20-barrel tanks and some mostly 40-barrel tanks. So we've got a lot of capacity for growth. It's a brew house that I'm at least relatively familiar with from working on a 3-vessel 15-barrel Deutsche at Town Brewing Company. And the initial batches really was hitting my numbers. Everything was really smooth. I couldn't have asked for some smoother brew days so far. So I've been really pleased with that, and just kind of every day is just dialing everything in and fine tuning everything a little bit more. But very happy with the initial batches.
Good, nice. I'll have to try that pale ale after we're done here.
Yeah, definitely.
If y'all could be remembered for one thing in this city as a brewery, what would it be?
I mean, for me, the whole reason that I still want to work in this industry, and I'm still excited to wake up every day working in craft beer is, and everyone says it, but it's the community. And we, I got my start in craft beer in Durham years and years ago. So this is kind of a weird little bit of a homecoming. I'm getting to reconnect with a lot of people and build new connections and just see how the beer scene's changed over time. But it's about the people. It's about making those connections. Durham is I've always loved the city. I always wanted to find a way to get back to Durham, and we're really that the opening of Atomic Clock was able to kind of bring me back to Durham, and excited to really kind of put down roots here and raise the family here and see the brewery continue to grow and hopefully prosper in the years to come. But I mean, we want to create a space where people feel at home, people feel comfortable, people feel welcomed. It's everyone in craft beer talks about how their tap rooms are kind of de facto community centers, and I think in their best iterations they can be, and they should be.
Absolutely,
they serve a really important part within the public space.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think building off of that, in terms of what we want to be remembered by. For me, I want people to think about Atomic Clock and say, wow, they make really great beer, but that experience was also as remarkable as the beer was. So nice. I think almost every brewery out there strives for high quality in what they're creating, as do we, right? We're not, trying to shortchange anything on the quality side of things with the ingredients that we're using and the time and art that Brian's putting into his beers. But for me, there's so many amazing beers out there, so many amazing breweries. And you got to be offering something a little bit more to the consumer that it's that really memorable experience that they're going to talk about. And so for that, it's, making sure that we're empowering our staff to really connect with customers, make them feel at home, but also doing some things that, go above and beyond, from like the investment that we put into the aesthetics behind the space, between different events that we're going to do, between, the fun things that I was saying about people bringing in their clocks and like just feeling a part of it and like looking up at the wall and being like, oh, I brought that in. Yeah. I think it lends itself to having these kind of more story-worthy experiences that people will then go and talk to their friends, talk to their family about. And to me, the best way for us to grow our business is through word of mouth and people having a good time and kind of spreading that word to others. That's the best form of marketing that you can get, is just, giving somebody a great experience and letting them do the rest.
Word of mouth. Yep.
Exactly.
It's always the best advertising.
Yeah. And I think, many breweries are kind of realizing of late, sometimes you got to do a little bit more than just put out beer, even if it's great beer. Yep. And we're extremely fortunate to have found a great chef in Chef David Lopez to run the kitchen. He's putting out amazing food that is certainly not just like typical brewery fare. Like we don't have a pretzel on our menu. We don't have any pizza flatbread action. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like we wanted to do something a little bit more elevated that can really complement the beverage program as well. And I say beverage program because it is certainly about more than the beer. We've got a cocktail program where we're serving spirits. We've got a more of a boutique wine selection. It's certainly more robust than just the bottle of red and a bottle of white behind the bar, which you still see at a lot of tap rooms that kind of de-emphasize that side of their program. But we really want to cast a very wide net, including some non-alcoholic options. I'm doing a hopped grapefruit soda here coming up that will be a great NA option, but we'll also be able to use in like cocktail applications, palomas and whatnot. So
nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously as a brewery, you want to think it's all about the beer, but if you're trying to create a space that's like truly inclusive and truly casts the widest net possible to bring in as many people and make as many people feel as home as possible, then you got to do a little bit more than just beer.
Yep. And that's pretty much the consensus on every episode. We've come around to, we're trying to build experience. We're trying to have a community. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. And I think, for a while there, craft breweries and the industry at large was kind of begrudgingly, I would say, jumping in and expanding beyond beer because it felt like, I don't know, just diminishing of kind of what craft beer is all about. But we really, from the get-go, wanted to embrace that, wholeheartedly and be excited and enthusiastic and as passionate about our cocktail program, our wine program, kind of the entire beverage lineup that we have. Because if you're not as excited and passionate about those things, then customers are going to notice that. They're going to almost feel guilty ordering something. And like, that's not a feeling that we want people to have when they're in the tap room. And we're still selling predominantly beer. Beer is by far still our top seller. So it's not like it's diminishing from what we are as a brewery. But I think there's also just really fun things that you can do with that of, kind of encouraging people to explore across categories. Oh, you like this beer? Have you ever had this gin? Right? You might get some of the same, flavor characteristics as you do from the hops in this gin, or vice versa. If somebody says, I'm not really a big beer drinker, and it's like, all right, well, what do you normally drink? Oh, you like this type of wine, or you like this. Here's a type of beer that you might like. And if you don't, no big deal. But like, then it's at least giving somebody an avenue to kind of safely explore these things off of a basis of what their own preferences are.
Right.
And kind of lead them on that journey that they're already kind of naturally doing a little bit themselves. But some consumers are a little bit more, trepidatious about jumping into something that they've tried a few things in. And it's just like, I've never found a beer I like, so I'm not a beer person anymore. And it's like, well, hold on. You could be. There's a wide world of options. Let's help you explore them.
Yeah, we're planning on.
It's not your father's beer anymore.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're planning on diving into a lot of beer dinners, and not just beer dinners, but pairing focused dinners where we'll do a beer versus wine dinner and pair each course with a beer and a wine, or sake or cider, and some cocktail tastings. We really want to kind of encourage that cross category exploration, and really, really excited to kind of dive into some of that in the more like intimate setting of a beer dinner where you can really like connect with customers a little bit more, closely one-on-one. And I think that goes a long way in towards just building a core set of regulars that really, will keep coming back day after day after having an experience like that. So really excited to kick those off in the coming weeks as we get our kitchen fully staffed up and continue to build that program.
Nice. Now, did you all come in with that intentionality on this venture, or was it more market driven?
No, we were pretty intentional with it from the get-go. And I mean, now was that because it was market driven? Because we both have our finger pretty closely on the pulse of what's going on. Probably. I had, in my prior roles in craft beer, on kind of the strategy and industry analytics side of things, was tasked with understanding those consumer trends kind of out in front of where they're headed. So it's been something that I've been personally like researching and studying and analyzing for almost a decade in this industry. So you don't have to be reading the tea leaves to see kind of how consumer trends are changing.
Yeah.
But also it was just modeled off of our preferences as well. I mean, we love beer. We're all sitting around the table drinking beer right now, but we drink plenty of cocktails. At home, I almost exclusively have like wine and liquor at home because I have so much beer around me at work all day that's not normally the first thing I'm cracking when when I get home. So
I don't even want to look at another beer.
Exactly. And so it's like if we're feeling that, and we're so in it and so passionate about beer, then of course other consumers are. And I want to be able to drink whatever I want in my establishment. So, that's part of why we knew from kind of day one that we were going to provide that kind of cross-category beverage experience.
Nice. Yeah. And it's probably about a year ago. I was speaking with Jason Glott of St. Louis Raceria. He's like, you'd be nuts to open a brewery today without a kitchen.
Yeah.
It definitely, I mean, everyone always says the line, oh yeah, it keeps asses in seats. And like, but I feel like there's been such all right, we need food, but we don't want to do anything that's like too challenging here. Because running kitchens, it's hard. I mean, staffing on that kitchen side is challenging. There is a reason why so many breweries are doing pizza. It's because pizza's got great margins and it's relatively easy to execute on.
Absolutely.
And we very much with our food program wanted to kind of avoid some of the common tropes that you're seeing at breweries that are opening up. Have some sort of kitchen, but usually it's maybe you can kind of tell that it's not their top priority. It's done to keep some business in there a little bit longer and but not necessarily be something that is extraordinarily memorable from a consumer standpoint.
Yeah. More of a necessary evil, very pragmatic kind of approach to food. And we're having a ton of fun with our food program, but to Brian's point, it isn't easy, and we wouldn't be able to do it without having a really great chef on board that we brought on board a few months ago. So he's been a part of this final stretch of build out for a while there. He was before the kitchen was even done being built. He's helping me build bar stools and, get a bunch of stuff dialed in. So he's been just a really great partner in the business. And we gave him pretty complete creative control over the food program. And he's been knocking it out of the park. We've been getting really great compliments on the food.
Awesome. So the people you surround yourself will determine your success. For sure.
Without a doubt.
So you've been open a week.
Just under
a week tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So what's the best compliment that you've heard so far?
Oh my gosh. We've been getting a lot of compliments. I think for me, the best one to hear, and we've heard it pretty consistently, is I've enjoyed everything I had. So
nice.
You can't get a better review than that, where, you'll have a table that ordered 5 or 6 different small plates, tried just about every beer that we have on the lineup, tried our hibiscus draft margarita that we've got flowing, and didn't get a single critique on any of that. So that's been really good, because that's been, several groups coming up to us. I would say the other great compliment isn't necessarily a verbal compliment, but we already have some regulars being established. I think we have You know,
You've been here every day.
we have had a couple people who have been here every day, and you know, several people who've been back at least a second time already.
Nice.
And to me, that's the best sign of like, you know, they're not just telling you what you want to hear. They're, you know, they're showing it with their wallet, and they're showing it with showing back up and,
Right.
and spreading the word. So those two things for me have been the real bright spots in an otherwise very chaotic opening week.
Well, hopefully you'll have a ton of regulars since you have an entire community that's being built right around you. So.
Oh yeah, we're feeling it's almost throwing some Thirsty Beaver Charlotte vibes with getting surrounded by apartment complexes. But you know, hopefully that's just some built-in customer base right there. So they got green dollars, they can come spend them here. We're here
People
for it.
from Charlotte would know exactly what that means.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And for anyone not from Charlotte, Google it. It's a funny image.
Absolutely.
It's like the house from Up that just gets like built.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. So anything crazy in the first week or?
I mean, I would say our soft opening was pretty crazy.
It was a little harder of a soft opening than we anticipated, but you know, trial by fire kind of mode. We you know, we kind of just did one
soft
opening, friends, family, industry crowd, and the industry crowd really showed up, and we got a little crushed for a minute, but that was a good thing. Helps you kind of iron out some of the kinks and service and flow.
Absolutely.
And, you know, certainly that's the day when people are going to be most forgiving when, you know, when they're your friends and family and colleagues. But we probably should have taken a day off after that to just let the dust settle. We were right back at it the next day at 11.
Yeah.
So
not jump straight back into a 12-hour day. Yeah, that was
oh wow,
hindsight 2020. I would say the other fun thing was so the day before we opened, that Friday, we had a full staff training from noon till 8:00. But some construction was still going on behind our bar. They were still installing shelves and some cabinets and all of that stuff that had to get reworked kind of in the 11th hour. And it got to be 5:00 that day, and they were not done with all of their work. And I was like, I just need you to leave. None of my bartenders have stepped behind our bar. None of them have poured a single beer on our system. None of them have made any of the cocktails on our cocktail list. Like, I can live without a menu board for a week. I cannot live with a staff that hasn't, you know, poured a single drink before we open our doors. So that was, that was a fun little situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Colleen, what's your most favorite job that you've held in the industry so far?
I would say, for me, what really shifted my career a little bit in the industry was when I became the general manager of the East Coast for Craft Brew Alliance. In that role, I was covering 22 states. I had a team of almost 100 people. We had 3 breweries in my territory. And for me, that was kind of my first kick at kind of a mini CEO role and kind of having the full responsibility of all aspects of the business: sales, marketing, operations, finance, HR, you name it, all under my responsibility. And that for me was what kind of shifted me from historically having just been like a strategist in craft beer, and analyzing the industry and kind of looking at long-term plans, to really also marrying that with real-time execution and what are we doing today to drive the business. And I, to be honest, didn't know if I was going to enjoy that as much as the like longer term, you know, big picture stuff, but I really loved it. I especially loved the people management side of that, and having kind of a really large and diverse team that, you know, all operate in a lot of different roles with a lot of different perspectives, and making all of those departments kind of come together and make sure everyone's on the same page and that we're all rowing in the same direction. And for me, that was what shifted me to say, all right, I don't just want to be thinking big thoughts about the industry. I want to be actively driving it day in and day out in a role like a CEO or an owner, where Brian and I are both very hands-on owners. We're not just, sitting back watching everyone, do everything around us. We're working around the clock to support the team, to build out the team, and to, jump right in and be interacting with customers, brewing beer, delivering beer, all of that. And I think in roles like that, you get to just see the fruits of your labor a lot more than kind of a more removed kind of long-term strategy type role, which, don't get me wrong, was very interesting to have roles like that in the past. But I think it's just a lot more fulfilling to be on the execution and operating side of things than just building a plan for somebody else to execute against.
Yeah. It's interesting to say that you enjoyed managing people.
I love it. I know a lot of people say they don't, but I think it's some of the most fulfilling things that you can do in your career is, helping people develop, learn new things, feel supported, empowered at work, because that's how you get the most out of people. If you can create a space where they're comfortable asking questions, comfortable trying things, and you're there to support them on that journey. That's also how you get people that are really bought in and excited about coming to work, and excited about, the journey that you're on, when they're feeling like they're getting more than just a paycheck out of it. They're also getting that, mentorship and kind of personal and professional development. So those are the sides of people management that I love. Managing underperformers and dealing with hiring and firing and all of that stuff. Yeah. I could live without those sides of things, but hopefully, if you're bringing in the right people, developing them in the right way, creating a culture that they want to be a part of, that minimizes your needs for doing the hiring and firing and kind of less fun sides of people management.
Yeah. So what you've described is true leadership.
I like to think so.
Yeah. Because I think the hiring and firing and all that stuff is just being a boss.
Yeah, exactly. So
what's been your least favorite job in the industry?
I don't know that I've really thoroughly enjoyed my time in the industry. I will say now the second most exhausting time in my industry career, besides this right now, was when I was leading mergers and acquisitions for Craft Brew Alliance. And we had the lovely plan to close 3 deals of 3 different breweries all on the same day.
Oh.
Anytime I talk to somebody who's been involved in acquisitions and I tell them that story, they just want to give me a hug. They were like, how did you survive? What did you do? Yeah. Why did you do that to yourself? That was a pretty exhausting time, because you're, negotiating with 3 different sets of founders who feel very passionate about the breweries that they're in. All of the deals are different, structured differently. And those were the first 3 acquisitions I had ever done. So I had never been involved in mergers and acquisitions at all before that. So it was like drinking from a fire hose, total trial by fire. And, so, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong.
So you quit the next day.
But it was, actually, it was one of the things that was like, no good deed goes unpunished, because we had just acquired these breweries that were all on the East Coast. And our CEO at the time goes, so Colleen, now that you've acquired these breweries, do you want to move back east and be the GM of the East Coast and manage them all? And I was like, kind of just want a nap, but all right, I guess I'll move back east.
Back to that sleep thing.
Exactly. So that's the common thread you're going to be hearing from me probably for a little while.
Awesome. So Brian, what's been your favorite job in the industry?
Ernest, I'm doing it right now. This is what I feel like my career trajectory's kind of been leading towards. I feel just extremely thankful that I can wake up and get into a brewery, make some great beer, continue to build build my craft beer career and skill set. And it's this is definitely kind of the long time goal, the long term kind of dream, and it feels really great to kind of see it finally coming to fruition. And it's I haven't I still wake up excited about craft beer. I know there is kind of weird little trend of, there's some negativity in the industry right now, and it's hard. It's always been hard. It's not any harder now than it was 10 years ago. I mean, there's certainly new challenges, but it's not the easiest industry to work in, as I'm sure you're aware. But I'm extremely thankful that I've been able to make a career in craft beer work and continue to be able to build that career and be able to support my family and while doing something that I really truly love.
Isn't that the goal?
That's it. Yeah. I mean, it's so I mean, I love it. I mean, this is what I've wanted to do for forever, and it feels great to do it. I'll say, on top of this, which I find extremely fulfilling, outside of my day to day with Atomic Clock,
because that's not taking up enough time.
Yeah,
so no sleep for you.
Well, I got a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So on top of all that, there's definitely no sleep. But I've also really found a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment working with the NC Craft Brewers Guild. I'm on the board of directors currently with that. So that's been great working. We've got a great guild in North Carolina. I've really enjoyed being actively involved in kind of seeing the North Carolina craft beer scene grow and thrive, and navigating some of the legislative hurdles that we have to address, and just doing a lot of member outreach and education, and beyond that, just in terms of the nonprofit work and kind of the extracurriculars outside of the day-to-day job. It's continuing to be extremely involved with the Many Faces Initiative, the nonprofit to promote diversity and inclusivity within craft beer. That summer internship program is about to be kicking off. We'll be hosting an intern at Atomic Clock this year, so hopefully I'll get a little bit of help, but it always seems to just add more work than subtracted, I think. But we've got 5 breweries this year that are hosting.
As well as how many breweries?
Yeah, so it'll be Town Brewing, Bond Brothers, Atomic Clock, Full Steam here in Durham as well, and then 760 Craft Works in Harrisburg.
Okay.
So
they're fairly new.
Yeah, fairly new. 760 has the Many Faces intern from Town Brewing has been working there for about the last, 9 months or so as their Lady of the Cellar, I think is her official title. But she is, Britt is about to go out on maternity leave. So it'll be good timing for them to get a intern in to kind of pass the torch while she's out for that. And we're excited to, welcome an intern into the brewery this summer to get a real fresh look at, brand spanking new brewery and dealing with some of the fun and unique challenges that come with being in very much still startup mode.
Right.
So,
do I get to add things to that intern's to-do list, or are you keeping that individual locked away at the production side?
We'll see. I mean, I do feel like the program is skewed with towards more interns that have had more of an interest on the brewing side of things, but the program's broadly for if you have an interest in marketing or events or sales.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's a we want the interns to be able to get experience in a range of roles within the brewery, because it's not just making beer. A lot of people, when they think craft beer, that's what immediately pops to their mind. So if we land on somebody who has absolutely no desire to put some boots on and get their hands dirty, then you might be in better luck than myself. So
I'll be sure to be reviewing those resumes as well.
So that's one of the biggest reasons that I started this podcast, is kind of to explore all the different roles that make up craft beer, and it's been interesting to learn about all the different facets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like no one ever, I've had this conversation with a lot of people in the past. Like, there's not a lot of 5-year-old kids that are like, I'm going to grow up to be a brewer, and certainly I probably wouldn't want your 5-year-old saying that. So it's always
unless you're Aaron Gore's daughter.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
I don't know. Your little ones are possibly getting on that trajectory.
They're my little cellar rats from time to time. When they get over to the brewery, but But yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but Garrett Oliver of Brooklyn Brewery said like, career in craft beer is like, it's evidence of like a life plan diverted or something like that. I mean, there's no one that was ever like, I'm going to be a brewer when I grow up. They all wanted to be astronauts and firefighters and all of that. And we all kind of find our way to this industry and very, via different paths. And, maybe with the brewing side, it's a little bit more like you see that trope of like home brewer, hobbyist turned pro. And
even in different roles, a lot of them started out home brewers. I might not brew anything now, but
for sure. Yeah. But then there's a lot to be said about bringing in people from other industries that have skills that are and fresh perspectives that maybe we lack when we just kind of operate out of our little craft beer bubble with a large influx of just hobbyists that just like, all right, I want to do this. And that's great seeing that passion and seeing those success stories. But, craft beer in general has always been kind of an anti-corporate, against the grain kind of crowd, which doesn't always attract a huge swath of like mega business savvy people like that. Like there's the passion there, and often great beer, but to make things work nowadays, especially, you need to have a really good head for business and understand cost, or
you better find somebody who does.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's the least favorite job that you've had in the industry?
Oh man, at a brewery years and years ago that actually sold some growlers wholesale. This was back when you could like randomly you'd find some growlers at like bottle shops or grocery stores, and there was a grocery store that would bring in growlers, and they'd return the empties, and so I got to we had this weird jerry-rigged CIP system for it was like 9 PVC pipes with little holes in them, and a little sump pump in a sink, and it was people just leave these dirty growlers in their garage for months in the summer. You have some of the best and most memorable smells
I can imagine,
and just all manner of things coming out of these growlers that beyond beer, cigarette butts. Sure. Yeah. That's understandable.
Yeah.
Used condoms, dead mice. Just it is, that was fun. And if I survived,
if that's your definition of fun,
pretty much any job in the brewery is better than washing, used growlers from, I'm glad we've moved away from that a little bit. And honestly, I don't hate growlers as much as I think a lot of people are like, oh, growlers are bust, or we're not even dealing with any of that. But I don't hate them. I just never want to clean a random growler coming back in from wholesale ever again.
I have several. I don't think I'll ever use again.
Yep.
After this story, probably not.
They're good collector's items.
Doesn't make you want to pour a drink out of one of those.
Yeah, they sit on the shelf.
I had moved around a whole bunch of them for a while, and I was finally like, I cannot move these things again. I got to get rid of them. But
I think most of the ones I have are from breweries past. So it's a nice little. Oh yeah, I remember that.
The wall of fame, wall of shame, however it goes.
Had some clear growlers. I was like, oh, what were we doing back then, guys? Yeah.
Really? I hadn't seen. It was a moonshine one. So Colleen, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would that advice be?
I think just that nothing's permanent, and to not think that every move that you're making in school, in your career, needs to be like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Because anytime I've moved to a different job or role or company or tried something different, I'm constantly posed with the question from people like, oh, so is this your forever job? And I'm like, I don't know, forever is a long time, guys. Why does it have to be? Why is everyone waiting for somebody to declare what they're going to do for the rest of their life.
Yep.
And I think when people think about decisions in that way, it can be really paralyzing, or it prevents people from trying something completely different because it's like, what if I don't like that? Or what if I'm not good at it? And it's like, well, then jump back to what you did like and you were good at, or find something different. Like, just because you accept a job or try something different doesn't mean you've signed up for a life sentence on that. And I think it took me a little bit to figure that out, but I had some really good mentors early on in my career as I was trying to, I think particularly when I was navigating my career shift out of CarMax and into craft beer. That was obviously a significant career shift for me, and a stressful time as I was evaluating different options. And I'm like, I don't know anything about this industry. Is this really a good idea for me? And so I got a lot of that advice at that point. But I think had I had that advice earlier, I think I would have maybe made a move sooner, maybe looked for some more changes even earlier in my career on that stuff, because I think it just was very freeing and has allowed me to kind of really look at each new opportunity for its own merits and not what it won't be or what it needs to be overnight. So I just think that's really good advice for people, whether you're 18 years old or really at any point in your career, to just keep us open to those new opportunities.
Right. And I think that perception probably is generational.
A little bit, yeah, for sure.
So, I think we were kind of raised up in, you graduate high school, you get a trade, or you go to college, you get out there, you get yourself a job, you work there for 30, 40 years, you retire, and then you're done.
Our dad just retired after working for the same company for 35 years, I think. Maybe more.
A lifer for sure. You just don't see that as much anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
But I think it still takes a little bit of like rattling people out of that kind of generational tradition, that an expectation that there has been kind of passed down to be open to those things.
Yep. Absolutely. So, Brian, what would your advice be to your 18-year-old self?
I think I would just want to stress the absolute importance of building a strong professional network. That almost more than anything has been like the biggest kind of key to my professional success is just surrounding myself with the right people and having a lot of people that I can lean on if I've got a question about something, if I need to troubleshoot something, having that network is absolutely crucial. I'm a huge proponent for formal education, and I did the Siebel and Domes Academy's Master Brewer program years back, and certainly invaluable in terms of the skills you can gain through that. But I think the bigger and more beneficial takeaway that I had from that was just the network of people that I became really, really close with through that program, and then that network just kind of grows over the years. Especially in this industry being so close knit, so collaborative. You put yourself out there. Talk to everyone, make these connections. That'll come back to you tenfold if you put forth the effort. I know a lot of brewers in particular that maybe aren't people per se, and that's fine. There's introverts out there, there's extroverts out there, but I will say and couldn't possibly stress enough that if I could talk to my 18-year-old self, it would just be like, make connections. Talk to people that you admire, find good mentors, try to be a mentor, eventually when you're, comfortable, in a skill set,
right.
Because those are, truly the things that long-term make a difference.
Nice.
I thought you were going to say, don't go to get your history masters.
No, I think that was pretty good. I mean, that's like all in all, beers, there's a lot of history in beer. So.
Absolutely. I love history. If you don't mind, could you explain your education, your head brewer studies in the academy?
Sure, yeah. So I was 2015. I enrolled in the World Brewing Academy Master Brewer program. That's in partnership between the Siebel Institute in Chicago and the Doemens Academy in Munich. Spent a couple months in Chicago at the Siebel Institute, which was certainly more brewing theory centric, and then spent months over in Germany. And there was certainly more brewing theory coming in during the coursework in Germany, but we also got a lot more practical hands-on training in Germany as well, in addition to doing a large European brewery tour and visiting some equipment manufacturers and malt houses, and it was very eye-opening being exposed to a very, very different brewing culture and brewing tradition compared to the American craft beer scene. They are very night and day. I mean, in Germany, beer is a staple. Beer is bread.
Yes, absolutely.
In the U.S., craft beer at least is at the end of the day, it's a luxury item. It's
right.
And it's it definitely, when the Germans, when they think about American craft beer, it's almost just synonymous with IPA in their mind, and it's tough because they have a very rigid mindset about beer, and but I think one thing that Americans could certainly take away from how German brewers operate is just the process focused mindset, and vice versa. The Germans, it's really hard for them to think outside that box sometimes, and watching some of the German students attempt to brew a American style IPA was it was a little comical. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I mean the coursework was great. Got it was a very wide range of skills that and topics that we covered, from lab and QA work to the brewing science, packaging, filtration, which you see very few craft breweries, certainly smaller ones, engaging in the slightest. But it's great to get just a very wide breadth of experience out there, and then be able to return from that program. I took a shift brewer job at Foothills right off the bat, which was great. Get some experience at a regional craft brewery. At the time, they were doing 44,000 barrels, so it was some good scale. And that I, after doing that for a bit, very quickly wanted to kind of I wanted some more creative freedom, and decided to go dive into the startup route. Did a startup brewery down in Georgia, and it was that was my first time kind of building out a brewery, and certainly a lot that I learned through that process that I then kind of took with me, getting town going with the crew down in Charlotte, and then this being our my third kind of startup, feeling a lot more comfortable about all right, what needs to be done to get us to a point where we're opening a not just a functional brewery, but an efficient brewery. Everything's more expensive now than it was 10 years ago. So navigating some of that during the build out is always fun, and making those hard decisions with always an eye towards quality and kind of long-term growth. But yeah, it's the Siebel education, like I said, it was certainly great from a technical and kind of brewing science aspect, but that network is just irreplaceable. Just being able to build connections with the students that came through that program, and the faculty with the program. I still keep up with a lot of them today as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So you were talking about those young German brewers. How ingrained is Brian Heitz? I never catch
Brian Heitzgebot. Yeah.
Brian Heitzgebot. Anyway, the purity law.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I feel like, mythos around Brian Heitzgebot, especially within the American craft movement. It is certainly true that, they are more limited in what they can utilize in brewing, but they, the Germans find their workarounds, and that beer also only some of those regulations are only required of beer that's being sold in the EU, for example, versus there's also a large export market going to a lot of beer going to China that maybe is not Rhine Heiskeboat. Check that box from German breweries. So it's kind of interesting to see how they kind of navigate it. And like we've got this idea of it, and like in American, it's like this idea that's like, look at this German beer is amazing. Like and you see like the Red Oak signs about there's no formaldehyde in these beers. We brewed to the Bavarian purity law. I'm like, breweries are putting formaldehyde in their beers right now. Like it's so I thought that was cheese. It's one of those things where I think we kind of build that up a lot, and like it has this like we put it on a pedestal of like that's what real brewing is. But at the end of the day, it's really nice to be able to use science to craft a good beer. And if you're really, really handcuffed by certain regulations that don't have anything to do with like consumer safety whatsoever, like that's a little bit problematic in my mind.
Right. Yeah. When you were talking about, watching them struggling, creating an American style beer,
I think
that's the first thing that popped in my head.
Just the range of styles that they're like, we walk into a bar here and we're seeing 20, 30, sometimes, you see some of the crazy spots like the Charlotte Beer Garden or Raleigh Beer Garden that have 300, 400 taps on, like, and just the wide range of styles that we brew versus the far more limited selection that most German breweries offer. Like, they a handful of beers that they're putting out, and they're putting out the same beer day after day after day after day, which allows them to really, really hone those recipes.
Mm-hmm.
The American craft beer scene is built on innovation and new, and we're trying to release something new, every single week, and sometimes that's great, it's fun, it's exciting for the consumer, but I do wonder sometimes if some brewers kind of lose sight of dialing in process if they're doing something new every single time.
Yep. Well, I think also for longevity, you kind of miss out on what is your flagship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What beer are you known for, kind of thing. So,
and some breweries don't want a flagship, which is fine.
Some of them don't. Yeah.
And I always say in this industry, it's like every other year it goes back and forth between being the year of the flagship to being the year of innovation, and like it's just like pendulum swinging back and forth all the time, because the reality is that balance between how much volume and revenue you want tied up in a single flagship versus variety is different for every brewery. The strategy can look different. And also, if you had or have an incredibly successful flagship that is 80-90% of your total volume, that can feel great, right? And you're just cranking that out, and it's consistent and people are loving it. But like, trends change, and suddenly that style or that beer is no longer the thing. You're leaving yourself a lot of business exposure. Right. So I think finding that balancing act, and not having, and not thinking that there's a one size fits all approach to what the exact right ratios are. And again, from the like strategy and analytical roles that I've had in the past in this, I've done a lot of studies on that exact thing, analyzing, percent volume concentration in single brands versus a top 2 brand, versus kind of a long tail of innovation and variety, and what that means for market share and growth rates and all of that. And, there's not a one silver bullet, like, hey, if you get to 57% of your volume is in your flagship, and you've got 3 other brands that make up another like 40%. And then, innovation is the remaining, or variety is the remaining X amount. Then you've got the exact right, mathematical recipe for success. Like, there's nothing that precise out there, having done this analysis on like hundreds of breweries with the data available. But I think it's really trying to answer those questions as it relates to your brand and your brand identity, and what your strengths are and what your capabilities are from a brewing perspective, what your system looks like, all of that. Because I do think all industries, and craft beer isn't immune to it. There's a lot of like copycat innovation, or just like, I see so and so doing that, so I'm going to do that same thing. And then you see suddenly every brewery has 6 different hazy IPAs on and all of this stuff, because everyone's just chasing the trends and all of that. And I think all of us need to take a step back and say, all right, is this trend right for me? I was working at an all imperial brewing company right before this up in Massachusetts. So we were doing, 8% was our floor. That was the lowest ABV that we had. And when I got there, they were like kind of far along in exploring a non-alcoholic beer. And I'm like, guys, we're an all imperial brewing company. Like, I get that Athletic is crushing it right now. Yeah. And like NA seems like it's, the bee's knees right now, but mostly that's just driven by Athletic. So we need to ask ourselves, is that really non-alcoholic beer that's growing, or is that Athletic that's just doing a remarkable job with oodles and oodles of funding? And I have a lot of respect for what they're doing. Don't get me wrong. But that doesn't mean that every brewery needs to suddenly figure out how to do that. Yep. Especially in a situation where it's like so counter to the ethos and DNA of the brand. Right. And I don't think we as an industry always take that really important minute to take a beat and really say, is this right for me? And it's scary to say no to some of those things, because like to say no to jumping on a big growth trend when like growth isn't a guarantee, it feels wrong to say no. But if you say yes to those things and it's just really not a brand fit for you, it's going to be as if you said no to it, because it's going to be a flop anyway. So
I tried to say no to hazy IPAs for many, many years, but
that one's past.
Yeah, I know. And then first one I brewed, I was like, all right, well, immediately bestseller in the tap room. I guess I'm doing this. Yeah, for
I like to joke around that after Brian got past being resistant to hazies, that was kind of step one in me being like, all right, maybe we're ready to like start exploring starting a business together, because he's thinking about the consumer trends. Yeah. But then the real kicker for me was your Imperial Blue Raz hard seltzer, and I was like, all right, now he's sold his soul. He's ready to rock. He knows what
all
needs to be done
the
to make
morals
a
out
buck.
the window. Yeah. Well, it's I guess then I'm I passed the test as a potential business partner when I completely sold my soul.
but you did do those well when you did them.
Yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, craft beer's supposed to be fun still. So we definitely. I mean, I take what I do extremely seriously, as do I think most brewers. But if you lose sight of the fun side of the industry, then it's like kind of what's the point? Yeah. So yeah,
awesome. Yeah, and one thing to circle back to, I think my perception is that most breweries stumble onto their flagship, if they're going to have one at all.
You don't want to be so formulaic and like prescriptive, like this is going to be my flagship. This is going to be my flagship, because it's. I mean, at the end of the day, you can try to steer it in a certain direction, but your customers and your given market's kind of going to select that for you. But I don't know. I mean, certainly at Town Brewing, we stumbled onto the flagship being that Broken Tarded Raspberry Hibiscus Sour, and I wish we had stumbled elsewhere, because raspberry is extremely expensive. I was probably bringing in more hibiscus down there than it was just so much hibiscus coming in. It was a lot of red everywhere. But the berry crop with climate change, kind of like we're inside in dry conditions in the Pacific Northwest. That's a challenging beer and a pricey beer that consumers are only willing to pay so much for. Right. Right. So, but I was like, I need some fruited sour on for opening. And then that just snowballed into what it eventually became. I don't know. We'll see where we land over here. I mean, I think we've got some ideas of where things might go, but time will tell.
Yeah. We're certainly not trying to, put a flag in any beer right now until consumers tell us where it should go.
Absolutely. So, who were the most influential people on getting Atomic Clock Brewing started?
I mean, that huge network, I guess, of people before us. I think for me, beyond kind of all of the people that we've worked with in craft beer, I think our parents were influential and very supportive of us. I think they rightfully get a little bit scared when both of their kids are diving all into the same project and kind of putting all of their eggs in one basket, but they've been phenomenal at supporting us, investing in the business and really helping us out a little bit from that lens. But also just, having that confidence so that even as you're going through the hard points, they can be like, oh, you got this, like, no big deal. So I mean, there's a zillion people within the industry that I could name, but I think we'd be remiss to not mention, the support that our parents had. So.
Yeah, we've got an extremely supportive network of family and friends that wanted to see this brewery, open up and thrive, and definitely kind of it takes a village to kind of make it work, and we are very fortunate that we had a village backing us to make this dream kind of become a reality. I mean, I don't know, and beyond a very, very supportive network of friends and family. I mean, the thing that I kind of love about Atomic Clock is that this is something that while it's been years in the works from the time we actually had a formal business plan to now, like it feels like this brewery was built on just conversations between you and I over the last 15 years or whatever. So it's kind of fun to just think back on
remember this napkin?
Yeah. On some of those conversations and some of those arguments and some of that, and then to see what, what it finally morphed into and ultimately became. And, we're almost 1 week in and, still extremely, extremely new and green and figuring things out day by day, but just really, really thrilled with how everything's come together, the team that we're building, and just looking forward to seeing what's to come.
Awesome. So what's a common myth about your job?
I mean, I don't think anyone has known what I do for a while. So it's tough for there to be a myth about it when it's really just a total enigma to everybody. Because in all of the different roles I've been in craft beer, it's very generalist, long-term, kind of a hand in a lot of areas, kind of, experience and knowledge that's,
it's more corporate,
a mile wide and sometimes an inch deep, sometimes a little bit more than that. So it's really kind of flexing to kind of whatever the needs of the situation really are and kind of going from that way. But I do think, I guess if I had to pin down a myth about kind of the business side of it, it is that it's all just, sitting behind a computer, calculating, the numbers and seeing how it all adds up. And I think certainly that's not how I'm approaching it. It's got to be that balancing act of really seeing kind of what's working hands-on in practice, and then seeing, and thinking about what the business needs are and what the return on investment is. Because it's not just, sitting tucked away in an office, looking at the business as if it just is numbers on a page. So
nice.
Kind of a long-winded and ambiguous answer there, but fitting for an ambiguous role.
So Brian, what's a common myth about probably not just being a brewer, but also being a brewer owner?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've heard several of these. There's always people that think, brewers are just drinking beer all day and like that peaky up taster, and they're doing and that's in practice just not what it looks like. I mean, obviously we're operating I'm on a forklift a lot. I'm, operating, in an environment that is not without its fair share of, risks and danger if you don't, if you're not very safety minded with how you operate. So no, I'm not slamming back pints off the bright tank every day. As much as some days I would like to just be like, I'm taking these boots off and I'm gonna post up next to this tank and just take a few nice long pours to keep my sanity where it needs to be. But no, I mean it's hard work. It's a lot of sweat, blood, and tears. Sometimes all mixed together and never mixed into the beer because that's. But I don't know. I mean, it's there is that kind of romantic idea of what a brewer is. And I always try to tell people that my job is the furthest thing from romantic that you could possibly imagine. Yeah. See former Crowler story about cleaning those very, very ripe growlers out. There's no romance in that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same with like people's perception of like being a bartender in the tap room. They just see the like, what you see in TV of like just washing that same glass over and over again as you're just like shooting with customers. Yeah. And it's like, that's like the break that you get to take. Yeah. That's like the breath of fresh air. And yes, those are really fun and rewarding moments where you're chatting with folks, but it's like, no, there's a lot of heavy lifting, ordering, you're running out of stock on things, you're running around, you're just doing a ton of cleaning. No one ever thinks about that stuff because it's not, romantic to think about those sides of running a bar or running a brewery, but that's a lot of what it is.
A lot of cleaning. So, and this may have changed in the past week, but what's the biggest challenge that you're facing?
Everything for me right now is still very like taking it day by day. I've got a long list of challenges that I need to navigate in the coming weeks. Currently don't have a working keg washer, but I'm getting some parts in and doing some TLC on that. Buying some used equipment's always fun. There's a lot of used equipment out in this market right now, obviously. So there's certainly good deals to be had, but that's kind of big on my next to-do list. I mean, so much of my last few weeks have just been long hours at the brewery, getting everything ready for our opening, everything, the initial days of brewing, when you want to build up volume and variety for an open, you're not brewing, I would say, in the most efficient way, especially when it kind of pertains to yeast management and being able to be at like just a better cadence of packaging, cellar work, and brewing to kind of yield the best efficiencies. Certainly not the case when you're just trying to, fill up the taps day one. You brew everything all at once and you package everything down all at once. So that like got the dust settled after our opening weekend, and I was like, well, got to fill these tanks back up. So just getting back in there, and then just kind of long term, viewing the brewing schedule and packaging schedule, and being like, all right, I can slowly start working into like a more efficient kind of cadence of operations that will also be far less brutal on my my sleep schedule and and my work life balance. But yeah, it's just taking it day by day right now.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is also just you're like changing the engine while you're driving in a lot of ways, because every single day, in the tap room, we're learning different things, stuff we need, different things about what's the best flow or kind of how we can operate most efficiently and effectively behind the bar while providing the best experience. And then it's that game of telephone to make sure that it's not just the staff that was there when we had that aha moment that knows to do it, but that everyone's starting to execute consistently and get into some good routines and stay on that same page. And then personally for me, just like trying to figure out some semblance of like routine or cadence or schedule to balance, accounting responsibilities, marketing responsibilities, taproom like all of the different things and make sure that we're carving out proper time for those things and not just being kind of sucked up in the immediacy of something that's happening here and now and be like, all right, I get it, but like, we'll deal with that in a moment, and just figuring out the times that you can deprioritize what you do need to jump on urgently. And because I think we both have a tendency of like, we want everything to be perfect or as perfect as possible right out the gate. And to do that, it can feel like you need to do everything on your to-do list yesterday kind of deal. And it's like, all right, you just need to like space that out, plan that out, realize, Rome wasn't built in a day, and kind of chip away at it methodically from there. Because otherwise you'll end up with a lot of like duct tape and Band-Aid kind of solutions to try to give you like quick fixes. And those aren't going to be, good long-term options for you anyway.
Right. What is one piece of advice that you would give anyone who's wanting to start a brewery?
Sure, a lot of people might say don't, but I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I mean, I definitely feel like I'm an industry lifer at this point. Like I have so much passion for craft beer, and like there's so much of my like individual identity I feel like is just kind of built up around the craft beer industry. So I just couldn't see myself doing almost anything else. But I guess the one piece of advice that I would give, and kind of in that vein, is if you've got that passion for craft beer and you couldn't possibly see yourself doing anything else, then yeah, take the plunge, dive in 100%, and make it happen. You're going to have a community that's that wants to see you succeed. Success is hard, and it's a lot of work to get there. But when I was in grad school for history, academia and jobs in academia are tenure track positions are going away. One of my mentors was like, like with the way academia is kind of panning out, like I've told a million people, like, unless you can only see yourself being a history professor, go do anything else, because like the money's not here, the tenure track positions aren't here, and there's a lot of parallels I feel like between that and the world of craft beer, because it's hard. The money's not always there. The work-life balance is hard to come by. So you really, like, if you want to make it work, I think like you have to have that passion, but like more than that, like it has to be the only thing that you could see yourself wanting to do, because I think because it's hard, and there's a lot of ways to interface with craft beer beyond opening a craft brewery, and probably a lot of ways to do so in a way that's certainly less costly, but also less costly on your mental health, I would say as well.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is just, once you've gone past that assessment of like, is it the only thing that you can see yourself doing, and you're really driving into it, is like, try to be self-aware around what you do know and what you don't know, and find a business partner or build a team that complements you and kind of rounds out that skill set. Because I think it's rare to impossible to find somebody who knows every single aspect of it. And it's one of the reasons that I think, Brian and I working together on this is a really good fit and good pairing, because there's a ton of things that I don't know that he does. And he's done some startups, and he's so dialed in on the brewing and production side and kind of a lot of other things like that, and vice versa, that I think if just one of us was trying to do it ourselves, we would not be able to, or we wouldn't be half as successful. And so finding that business partner by being aware of where you need to round out your skill set to make sure that you've got as many of the boxes checked. You're still not going to have all of them. There's still stuff that the two of us are like, we'll figure it out as we go, right? And we'll work through it together. But being able to round that out is really important, because it's a lot. I say all the time, running a brewery, I think, is like running 3 distinctly different businesses. You've got to be an incredible, high quality, consistent, efficient manufacturer. You have to be able to run a great bar/restaurant situation where, like, I mean, you hear all the stats around how quickly new bars and restaurants close and the number of them that fail after the first year or first 2 years. And then you also have to navigate the distribution side of things at some point, and there's different laws, there's different things, there's different skill sets there. There's self-distribution versus going through a distributor. Those are all 3 really different pieces of the business. And so, I mean, opening a brewery is not for the faint of heart because of that variety and complexity of what you need to do. And because of that, you really need to make sure that you're rounding out your team to be able to kind of manage all of those different aspects and not think or put all the weight on all of the weight of the world on yourself to be able to do all of those, because I think that's a unrealistic expectation for somebody to put on themselves.
Very good. Very good. Colleen, what's your favorite productivity hack?
I'm pretty old school on that. Like, I am a pen and paper to-do list person. But I try to, early on in my career, I learned about the important versus urgency matrix of how to map my to-do list into that. Because a lot of people prioritize urgent but low important things just because it's like a fire that feels like it needs to be put out right away at the expense of important but non-urgent things. Think long-term planning, think, keeping your financial records up to date so that you've got that real-time look at that. You can always feel like, oh, I can push that off to next week or something like that. But that's a really key window into your business and the health of it. And so really trying to take that lens to it to make sure that you're just not wasting your time on, putting out really immediate, but not super mission critical things. And I think the more you start doing that, the more you can kind of naturally tell what item on that to-do list is or isn't in each of those categories. But I think having that kind of constantly in the back of your mind is important, because it takes kind of unlearning things. Like, no one feels like they should deprioritize something that is urgent. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it's really assessing that importancy scale.
So, Brian, what's your favorite productivity hack?
I too am a big to-do list kind of. I love my big whiteboard at the brewery with my production schedule. For each day written down for at least the coming weeks. Definitely helps to keep a eye on the big picture. But I'd say one of the things that I try to do to hopefully make things a little bit easier for me on the day to day is if I see a task that is going to be pretty daunting and challenging, I know I'm going to need to knock this out at some point in time tomorrow at the brewery. Do it first. Do that hard task right first thing in the morning, because then it's all downhill after that point. If you hold off on that and you're like, oh, well, I'll do that at the end of the day after I knock out this and this, all the stuff that you're feeling good and comfortable with, it just looms over you all day. And it just kind of, I think it affects your mindset throughout the day. If you can knock that biggest challenge off your list right off the bat, everything goes smoother for the rest of the day and you're in a better mindset for the rest of the day. That's always how I kind of try to, attack, a list of tasks at the brewery each day when I'm kind of planning out my day.
Yeah. And sometimes that also allows you to knock that out before any other distraction that's going to pop up throughout the day. Before other people get in. Probably less of an issue when you're all alone at the brewery.
Yeah, vendors and FedEx guys and random people.
There's always distractions.
That was always an experience. I always tried to get to the office an hour early before everybody else, because I knew after that, whatever I wanted to get accomplished probably wouldn't get accomplished.
Or a fraction of it. Well, right?
Absolutely. What's an underrated tool that is indispensable for your job?
Underrated tool. Well, lately I would say my little tiny Allen wrench, because I've been having to retighten my bar stools every day. My chef was just making fun of me because I just pulled like 2 of them out of my pocket first thing this morning. It's like you're literally walking around with those in your pocket. So that's been very helpful lately. But I think really I cannot go anywhere right now without my laptop or my backpack at large. It's like my traveling office. It literally has, I think, everything I could possibly need on me at all times. And so if I'm without it, I just immediately feel naked because we don't have an office space over at the tap room. We don't have a printer or anything. That's all at the production space. So I'm constantly loaded up with my mobile office. So that is my actual most important tool, not my little Allen wrench.
How about you, Brian? What's your underrated, indispensable tool?
Not a tool per se, but I feel like a lot of brewers and a lot of brewery owners, when they're building out a brewery, they focus on all the shiny stainless steel and the tanks and let's get a brew house that's this size, whatever. And they skimp on things that long term are going to make their lives a nightmare. I think the biggest example that I see is brewery floors, and that just that investment at the start will make your life so much easier long term. Keeps your brewery cleaner, keeps all that shiny stainless steel doing what it's supposed to be doing. I always tell people maybe buy one less tank and then put that money into your floors, because long term you're gonna that'll pay itself back real quick versus having to grapple with that challenge down the road while you're in the midst of production and having to move tanks around and deal with all that. So certainly not a tool per se, but something that I feel like a lot of people kind of don't really think about too much and kind of under prioritize during build outs to their kind of long-term detriment. And very, very happy to say that got a pretty good setup at the brewery, and excited to work in that space. I've worked at breweries that don't have great floors, that are just a nightmare to be in. That it makes a big difference.
Awesome. So this is, of course, a alcohol industry. So what kind of safeguards that you have in place for yourselves or your employees to ensure that they're not having issues with the product?
I do. I mean, a lot of people do like a dry month or, dry January or whatever. I try to do 8 dry weeks throughout the year. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of manage a week in this industry, that there's always, conferences and events and everything like that, where there's a lot of expectation to imbibe some sort of, beer or alcohol while you're there. But being able to carve out, 8 weeks throughout the year, I think it's good just to kind of, keep, build up some, moderation and just always good to have a little reset, now and then. I don't really
palate reset too.
Palate reset as well, for sure. Yeah. It's, like you can definitely kind of get burnt out if you're, I don't know. I mean, I see a lot of people that, I think used to see a lot of people that would just kind of burn out in 5 to 7 years in this industry, and alcohol was always I think a big factor in that burnout. And if you want to make it long term, if you want this to be a career, you need to find a way to practice moderation and to find that balance, because literally there's always an excuse to be able to go toss back some beers with another brewery. There's a lot of free booze in this industry, but it's that comes with a lot of risks, and you need to be mindful of your physical and mental health when you're operating in an industry that is just surrounded by alcohol all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with what Brian was saying. I would add, we just have policies in place around, what employees can consume after work in terms of quantity. there. We have, policies around, making sure that people aren't, sampling while they're on the job and things like that are both illegal and unsafe. And then that's for kind of like, protecting and managing, the consumption from a staff perspective, but, also just like really empowering the staff to not feel scared to cut somebody off if they see a customer that's, overindulged or anything like that. And sometimes that's easier said than done because that is their job and there is liability that's involved as bartenders on that stuff. But it also has to come with confidence, and it has to come with support from management and ownership that they're not going to second guess that decision, that we're going to prioritize the safety of our customers and our staff over the profits of that one additional pint that you sell to them, and making sure that that's really known and that you're demonstrating that by having their back when they're in that situation, so that they don't have to feel ever like, oh, is Colleen going to be okay if I cut this person off? It's like 150% yes.
Absolutely.
If you're feeling
absolutely.
it, like better safe than sorry on that.
Absolutely.
So
I don't know North Carolina. I know South Carolina. There was an incident when a bartender got off from work and then kind of hopped to the point that I think she ended up killing somebody on the road. And
oh my gosh!
So they turned around and sued all the bars that she was at for over serving.
There's similar. I've heard of similar instances in North Carolina over the years, and everyone. A lot of lawsuits, everyone out to get that insurance money. And sadly, their injury and loss of life. And, there's a lot of risk with that. It's pretty much, it's something regardless of any state laws, like they're all pretty clear on that. Like you have a lot of liability when you're serving this product. So you have to do so with that risk in mind and know that like the decision that you make to pour that extra pint is a decision that can have, pretty significant impacts.
Right. And also in South Carolina, legislation was passed where for really benefited. Well, it made it very difficult for liability insurance. So any place that serves alcohol in South Carolina now, they're what was one guy tell me his liability insurance went from like $1,000 a year to $20,000 a year. So yeah.
Yeah.
You can always tell your people, yes, cut them off.
Yeah. Insurance isn't cheap. That's for sure. We don't have it quite that bad, but yeah, it's not the most fun expense and bill to see every month, but
So Colleen, what's the 3 best beers that you've had in the past year?
Like, what is a year right now? Time's lost all meaning.
I used to say last year, but in January that kind of.
I know, right? Yeah.
In January that's fine, but later on in the year it's.
Yeah, I will. I'll shout out a couple from my last brewery, which I'm biased on. So I was at Greater Good in Massachusetts, and 2 of my favorites that I had there was Big Thaw. It was an Imperial Cold IPA. I'm very supportive of the cold IPA trend, though I know some brewers kind of resist it as like, what is this even? But I think
I thought that was going to take off last year.
I think there's still some run room for the cold IPA. I'm still putting my chips in that corner there. And then we were starting to play around as an all imperial brewing company with imperializing traditionally lower ABV beers, and so we made a really nice imperial Mexican lager that was like dangerously crushable. That we were enjoying so much. I think they've made it now a year-round offering for them up there.
Wow.
And then I'd be remiss to not, shout out one of Brian's beers, even though I've only had them in the last week. So I've been drinking a ton of Perpetual Motion in the last week. It's been my go-to, and it's just, really refreshing, really, really well balanced, and really impressive since it was your first brew on the system. So now you set the bar that high. They all have to continue to beat that, because that's awesome. That's where the bar's at. Now we can only go up.
I don't know. I'm kind of a creature of habit. I used to explore a million different beers, and I was on that Untapped game trying to just try new all the time. I feel like in recent years, I've kind of that mindset is gone for me completely. I'm definitely more of a creature of habit. When I'm buying beer, I would like for the house 9 times out of 10, it's probably a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, because I'm just that cliche brewer type that goes for that.
It's amazing how many people they keep Sierra Nevada Pale Ale in their refrigerator.
Oh yeah,
and I'm one of them.
Yeah, I don't actually buy a lot of beer except for probably Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's up there pretty high. I always love some Celebration when they roll out with that each year. Yeah. And weirdly enough, I'm not even like a huge hophead IPA guy, but like that one does it for me. This beer that we're putting out today kind of has some of those vibes to it. It's it's billed as a hoppy amber, but like very much kind of like almost old school pale ale vibes with a little bit of malt character, some old sea hops. I'm loving this. It's going to be my go-to pint, and loving how that heirloom rye is kind of expressing itself in this one. It's going to be my go-to for the foreseeable future, I think.
So, is there anything that I didn't cover, or any questions I didn't ask that you would wish I did ask?
I am extremely excited at Atomic Clock to be brewing pretty much exclusively with local craft malt here from Durham. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but I do think that it's something I really want to showcase about our beer program, because at least for like the lay consumer, when they walk into a brewery tap room in their city, they've already checked that I'm drinking local box. It doesn't matter if the malt's coming from Germany, the UK, Canada, wherever. They've already, in their mind, they're drinking a locally made beer, but there are certainly different degrees of local, and to be able to work with such an amazing partner in Epiphany Craft Malt to source locally malted barley, rye, triticale, wheat, a lot of fun heirloom varieties, and be able to have that close partnership with the maltster is, I think, just absolutely amazing. And I think it really you can taste the difference in the end product. It's not simply enough to work with a local craft maltster just to say you're doing that, because at the end of the day, customers, they don't really care that much. They're not digging that deep into it, so it's hard to kind of like garner that excitement. So there has to be some other reason why you're doing that. And I think definitely with how malt prices have changed in recent years, and how climate change is really, really rearing its head within the malting barley industry of late. Suddenly, some of these malt houses in the Southeast are becoming more viable options, both from a cost perspective, and while not a historic growing region, the Southeast is putting out some exceptional winter barley now that has been great for malting, great for brewing. I'm excited to be a part of that story, because it has it also has very real climate and energy footprint impacts. When you're not getting malt that's been shipped across the world. You're driving over, picking it up locally. That it's not traveling as far. Epiphany's extremely environmentally conscious with what they're doing, and in terms of carbon neutrality and trying to sequester carbon through some of their efforts. It's nice to be a part of that story, and I think if craft beer wants to continue to be sustainable long term, we need to have brewers that start giving a lot more consideration into how they're sourcing their raw materials for their beer.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because that was a question on my mind about locally sourcing when you were talking about, I think it was the rye out of South Carolina.
Yeah, it's grown in the Southeast broadly, but I think it kind of got its recent resurgence from the Charleston scene, using some of that rye for mostly for baking applications, but it's been fun to brew with, and distillers are playing around with it, and it's fun using some of these heirloom varieties that don't really get much play because of how commodity crops have kind of limited your options more and more and more, and by limiting your options, you're also limiting your flavor outcomes, and being able to work with a smaller craft malt house gives us a lot of tools to explore flavors that maybe aren't available to brewers across the country because they're very specific to what we're working with.
Yeah, no, I mean, besides that,
Did you say ditto?
No, I wouldn't have gone down that level of spiel on malt though. Working with Sebastian at Epiphany has been amazing. But yeah, no, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. So, I mean,
Awesome.
I appreciate you coming out and taking the time to hear a little bit more about our story and what we're all about here.
I think this is going to be an excellent episode.
Awesome.
Yeah. So where can people find you online?
Well, soon I will build us a website. I've been saying that for several months. But for now, following us on Instagram and on Facebook at Atomic Clock Brewing on both of those sites. So
Thank you so much for being guest on Behind the Beer.
Yeah, thank you for coming up to Durham to join us.
Yeah.
awesome. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, we've got empty glasses now, so I think that's a sign.
And we'll be back again with another episode of Behind the Beer very soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Behind the Beer. Please rate and review us on your favorite listening platform. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@behindthebeer. If you would like to be a guest on Behind the Beer, email us at behindthebeer2020@gmail.com. Behind the Beer is produced by BWM Productions.